Awesome. Thanks, Deanna and Brendan. So we are gonna go over pre-boarding best practices, and so that'll include some reference check etiquette, some offer etiquette, sending a first contact email, letter of offer etiquette, which we will continue to harass you guys about until it's perfect, and sending out first date information. And then Deanna will go into some onboarding best practices. So you can go to the next slide, Brendan. So I wanted to define what pre-boarding was. So in my opinion, it's the process of engaging and preparing a new hire between the time they accept a job offer and their official start date. The goal is to create a smooth transition, boost engagement, and set the employee up for success before their first day. Next slide. Okay, so I also include reference check etiquette in pre-boarding because usually by the time we're at the point where we're doing reference checks, we're pretty sure we're going to want to make an offer to that person or the one of those people that we're doing reference checks on. So I just want to get some audience feedback. Why do you guys think the way that we complete reference checks is important? And you can type in the chat, come off mute, ignore me, whatever.
Don't everyone talk all at once.
So to get accurate info, so we don't give a false narrative on an offer. Give a heads up that it's coming. Okay. Zoom seconds to me move painfully slow, so I'm going to move on. And then if somebody types or comes off mute, that's great too. So next slide. So it's important because it ensures accuracy and integrity. So reference checks can help verify that the information the candidate has provided, such as their skills, work history, and job performance is accurate. It helps us understand the candidate fit. References can offer valuable insights to how a candidate performs in a real work situation. It helps us mitigate risk. So hiring someone who's not suited for a role or has a history of problematic behavior can lead to costly mistakes. Having proper etiquette shows professionalism and respect to the candidate. So how we do reference checks speaks volumes about CU's professionalism and how respectful we are about it. And then it builds trust. So if we handle reference checks professionally, it demonstrates transparency and trustworthiness, and it reassures the candidate the process is fair and objective. Next slide, please. So our options for completing reference checks, as you all know, are cross-check and then manual phone calls. So for both, you want to maintain the candidate consent. For cross-check, you want to give an overview of the system we use. You want to make sure you have the correct email address for the candidate, and then you want to give a time frame to get the information submitted with cross-check. I think a lot of times there's this tit for tat where we don't give a good time frame, and so then we're following up with the central HR team and they only have one or two or none, but the candidate wasn't aware of the time frame needed to turn this around in an appropriate amount of time. And then for manual ones, you want to give the reference an overview of what the position is. Make sure you ask targeted job related questions. Use structured questions that are easy to answer and give ample time for responses. So some notes on the side, School of Medicine recommends completing a cross-check and manual reference checks, but one or the other is fine. And then references should not be shared with anyone not involved in the hiring decision. Next slide, please. So I have an example. So Michael Scott has just completed his final interview for a manager role. The search committee wants to move him forward in the process, and the next steps will be completing a reference check. So I gave 2 potential emails that you can send, one for a cross-check, one for a manual phone call. And with the cross-check, the important part is that you give a time frame. So we need Michael to put his references information into cross-check on X date, and we need Michael to let his references know we need them completed by X date. If you just leave that out there, then we're going to be doing this tit for tat game until we get all the references back, and that just slows down the recruiting, onboarding, hiring process. And then for the manual phone call, I think the important thing is making sure it's okay to reach out to the references that the candidate listed on their application materials. I'm not going to read these emails. We'll send it out. So just some examples you guys can use. Next slide. And then here are some manual reference check question examples. Central HR actually used to send this out when they posted positions for us. So I just went into my archives and pulled these and pasted them here for you guys to use in the future. Next slide, please. So now we'll go into the offer etiquette. And when I say offer, for right now, I'm talking about the verbal offer. So why is the way that we offer someone a job important in your guys' personal opinion?
It's their first impression of the company and can really lead the way for the rest of their experience.
Yes, absolutely. Anybody else? It sets the tone and gives them a solid welcome into the department, sets the tone on the company and how we handle things. It can guarantee that they will take the job. I agree. All right. Oh, sets expectations. It's also our opportunity to sell ourselves to work here, and then consistency. Yes, everybody gets a point. Next slide. So it's important because it shows professionalism and respect. It sets the tone for the candidate experience. It helps with negotiation and retention. If when we offer a position, we're open about negotiation and retention down the line when promotions or changes in work schedule, so on and so forth, may happen, it shows the candidate that we're open to those dialogues and we're mature and understanding enough to have them. It creates excitement and buy-in, and then it helps avoid surprises. Next slide, please. So how to verbally offer a position. So if it's university staff, you want to maintain comp approval from Central HR, School of Medicine HR. If it's faculty, you'll do your internal processes and then make the offer. You want to make the verbal offer and clearly outline the salary, benefits, and start date. Something I didn't include, but I just thought it's important, is since we're in a hybrid, remote, or on-site work environment, you want to clarify that with the verbal offer and then answer any initial questions the candidate might have. You want to send a follow-up email with the terms and readdress any of their questions and then receive confirmation of acceptance. And then on the left-hand side, I have some negotiation tools. We have our SOM recruitment incentive guide, our total compensation calculator, and then the AMC holiday calendar. We get a lot of holidays, and I think that's always a good tool to use to incentivize people to come to work by reminding them they get days off of work. So next slide, please. So when it comes to offering staff positions, please do not move forward until you have the comp approval. It should look something like this. We're working with Michael Scott right now, so this is what your approval email should look like, and then you can move forward to the verbal offer. Next slide, please. And so this is a verbal offer phone call example. So it's between Toby and Michael. I'm not going to read it. I don't believe in reading slides verbatim. It's just a waste of time. But I do think an important thing to note here is the third slide down. Michael asked if we could give information on our benefits. So I'm not a creative writer. I'm not a creative thinker. This was just resources we have. I used our benefits website, and then I used the Central HR job ad, and I just took the information from there and put it here. And so my goal was to just show you guys, it's not something where you have to dig to find the information. You don't have to be creative. You don't have to lie. You don't have to speak of things you don't know about, but the information is there and we have it. So while we're having these verbal offer conversations, lean into the resources given to us. And maybe you should practice before doing it, and that's totally fine, but you have the information and it's right in front of us. And at the end of the conversation, also with offering the position, I believe the comp approval was $1 to $10. I didn't start at $1, but I didn't start at $10. Toby gave himself room for negotiation, and we landed at $7 with a $2 recruitment incentive. And then it's always important just to follow up with an email outlining the offer and giving the links to the benefits information, just so they have that information, and just let them know that they're going to receive their offer in DocuSign as soon as we can process it. So next slide, please. So this is just an example of a verbal offer follow-up email. The only difference is I included the wellness and benefits link and then that total compensation calculator, I almost said calendar. And I think oftentimes we use that base comp as the end all be all, and it's not. Our benefits are wonderful and extensive and inclusive and all of those good things. So giving the candidate that information is super helpful. And just makes the process more robust and lets them know that we are truly invested in them. Next slide, please. Okay, so now we have our verbal offer acceptance. Michael is going to start working here for $7 an hour. Wonderful. So now we're going to get into our first contact email. And so why is sending a first contact email important and what should it include? And think about your own experience when you had your first day here. It should be welcoming and let them know that we're excited to have them join the team. Guidance, transparency, expectations, next steps. All right, next slide, please. So it formalizes the agreement. Oh, keeps an open line of communication. Yes, absolutely. So it formalizes the agreement. Our letter of offer process is a little long, and so this is one of the first ways we can formalize the agreement. It sets expectations, so it'll include their start date, what pre-contingencies there are, such as drug screenings, background checks, sex offender screens, all of those things. It creates a positive first impression. I think if we didn't talk to our candidate from the time they accepted the verbal offer until they got their offer letter, that candidate might no longer be there. So we want to make sure we have those open lines of communication and create that positive first impression. It sets the stage for professionalism and consistency, and it shows that we are organized in our processes, and then it should help avoid confusion. Next slide, please. So these are just general components of a first contact email. Introduce yourself. Sometimes the person that made the offer is not the person doing the onboarding. So if Deanna interviewed me and offered me the position and then Brendan came out of nowhere, I would probably ignore Brendan unless he told me who he was and why he was here all of a sudden. You want to outline the terms of the offer, collect the applicant's personal information, give an overview of any pre-employment requirements, and then reassure the applicant that you're working on their letter of offer. Potential additional components, if it's a provider and they are going to be working in a hospital, send them the list of required documents for privileging. If they need work authorization, send those documents required for a visa. If they work in a clinical setting, send those occupational health screening instructions. And then if there's any nuances to your department or unit, you want to send those to the candidate as well. Next slide, please. And so here's an example of a first contact email. Toby introduced himself, went over the start date, the salary, and the recruitment incentive. SOMHR and HRSS, we collect personal information via a secure personal information form, which I will do a training on later down the road on how to create one of those. When we were creating and developing our pre-boarding practices, I just like the idea of creating that form versus the PDF. It just came across cleaner in my opinion. So I'll go over that at a later date. And then I just went over the contingencies of the hire. For a manager, they'll just need a background check and to complete an I-9. And then I also let them know that the emails will be coming from HireRight, not the university. So that way they have their eyes out for what to look for. And that's a first contact email. Next question. Haha, Dylan. I mean, next slide. I said next question, sorry. So now we're gonna go over letter of offer etiquette. Once again, I think we have harassed you guys enough about this, so not gonna go too in-depth, but let's just take this time to remind ourselves and each other, what do you consider important when it comes to letter of offer etiquette? And once again, draw on your own experience from when you were waiting for your letter of offer. Accuracy, agreed. Timeline to receive it. Good formatting, professionally formatted, all of those good things. Okay, we can go to the next slide, Brendan. So yes, to everything you guys said. And so timeliness, once a verbal offer has been accepted, it's important to send the offer letter promptly. I know we have a lot of things in between. We can't just take a letter of offer and put it in DocuSign, but make sure that you're on top of it and just continue to communicate. In the pre-boarding practices I've developed, my team reminds the candidate that their letter of offer is on the way every step of the way. Clarity and accuracy, it should outline the essential terms and conditions of the employment, and it should leave out any vague or ambiguous language. You want to set a professional and friendly tone. You want to make sure you're following legal compliance. The great thing is we have templates, so we don't have to worry about that too much. But if there's something you need to add in or you want to take out of a letter of offer, because some situations aren't as easy to use the template, just make sure you're consulting with legal and central HR. Attention to detail. So everybody who said formatting and accuracy gets double the points. It's so important to spell somebody's name right, to make sure it's the right position, to make sure that the salary is right, to make sure the signature lines are right, to make sure that everything looks the same and uniform throughout. It just sets the tone, and we want to set a good tone. And then make sure the information is comprehensive and transparent. That way we can avoid confusion down the road. So if this person is thinking their position is 100% remote and they get their letter and it's hybrid, then we can pause and have a conversation, versus them coming to campus and thinking, or not coming to campus thinking their position is 100% remote and it's actually hybrid. So just some things to think about. I don't have examples to go into here. I know School of Medicine HR, we did a training and when we provided a plethora of examples on letter of offers and what they should and shouldn't look like. So I won't run that into the ground anymore, but just a reminder, make sure they're beautiful and perfect and have somebody look at them before you send them. I think Malia and Alicia are a good checkpoint, but you can do that internally as well before they get to Malia or Alicia. Next slide, please. So now we are at the final part of pre-boarding. We have done our reference checks. They came back wonderful. We did our verbal offer. They accepted. We send the first contact email. We drafted and routed our lieu. We got it back signed. They passed all their pre-employment contingencies, and we're going to send them their first day information. So what do you wish you would have known on your first day at CU? I will go first. On my first day, I parked at Children's Hospital. And then I walked to building 500. Wumi probably gave me the parking information and a map. I don't do maps. I don't know cardinal directions, so I did my best. So paying attention to the parking information provided would be fine. But what do you guys wish you would have known on your first day? That we're paid monthly. Yes, that is a big one. Direct deposit, dress code. What's the food situation? That's an interesting one. Who's who? That's a good one, especially for DOM. Where to meet my boss on the first day, to wear comfortable shoes. There was a lot of walking. How safe is campus after dark? What to bring, lunch, ID, etc. Is there a charge for parking? All of those things. All right, next slide, please. Oh, wait, for working hours. Oh, that's a good one too. So it's important because it's a warm welcome. It helps the new hire feel excited and valued even before they step into the office. It should provide clarity such as start time, location if it's in person, virtual login information, dress code, any documents or items they need to bring. So a lot of the stuff you guys mentioned. It should set expectations of what they should expect for their first day or first week. My team does a first week situation versus a first day. It can also be a time for team introductions. And so that CC line, putting those core people on there. Encouragement, it encourages open communication. We've all had our first day at work before, and it's not a good time. But if you open those lines of communications prior to them starting, they'll feel more comfortable and open asking questions. And then from pre-boarding to onboarding, this final first day email is what we call it, should help create a smoother onboarding experience because you've given them as much as you can prior to them starting. Next slide, please. So just some components at a minimum that you should include in a first day email. Provide information on how to claim their account, schedule time to complete part 2 of their I-9, provide new employee orientation confirmation, send or attach instructions on how to complete direct deposit and when to complete it by. Let them know when they can expect to receive their first paycheck. Being paid monthly, I'm sure this was jarring for most people when they started. Provide information on how to set up parking, provide a campus map and highlight important locations, and then provide instructions on Anschutz badging process at a minimum. Potential additional components are to provide information on non-Anschutz sites badging, so children's, university hospital, CU Medicine, whoever else is in our little bubble. Give information on any additional orientations they will need to attend. So for providers, UC Health, Children, CU Medicine. Provide an overview of the system trainings they'll need to complete and then connect them with the first day department contact. We like to give our new hires the coffee or tea or beverage of their choice as long as it's alcohol-free on the first day. So that's kind of our extra thing we do. And also realizing that not everybody works on the main campus. So some of this information isn't important. So if they're not going to be on the Anschutz campus, the parking information might not be important. If they're not going to be working on the Anschutz campus, the map might not be important. And so just to be able to deduce what they do and don't need. Next slide, please. So here's an example of a first day email, very long, has a lot of information, but I like that we give as much information before they start as possible, and then they can just kind of refer back as they need it. So we tell them how to claim their account. We go over completing part 2 of their I-9 verification. We give them their new employee orientation information. Next slide. We give them information on direct deposit and W-4 setup. It's really important to get this information out before payroll starts processing, because once the system is locked, they're going to get a paper check, and we let them know that in the 3rd paragraph on this email. So even if somebody is starting after payroll, you want to try to make sure to get this email out and get all of their hire information into the system prior to that, so they still have time to set it up and that payroll runs appropriately, even though they might be starting after payroll runs. We do let them know that they'll be paid at the end of the month. If they're a biweekly employee, we switch this out and put the biweekly payroll schedule link in here. Next slide, please. We give them information on parking and then university badging at a minimum. Once again, you can add and subtract whatever information is important to you in your unit, and then we just recap the important steps, which for us are to claim their account, enter direct deposit and W-4, schedule time to complete their I-9, and then attend NEO. So we'll be sending all of this out after, so you guys can start using and incorporating, ignoring whatever you want to do with these emails. Oh, Ashley, employees can no longer enter direct deposit before their start date. So I like to tell those that if their start date is after payroll, they will by default get a paper check. That's actually very good to know. Thank you, Ashley.
Just an update on that. I think an email came from employee services. That was a glitch with some of the direct deposit updates, but I think that's been corrected.
Yeah. TBD. I'll follow up with you guys. I won't leave you hanging. All right, next slide, Brendan. So just some attachments that you should include on a first day email is the CU direct deposit instructions, a map of AMC if it's necessary, I-9 documentation. There is I-9 documentation for international employees as well as non-international employees. So sometimes that attachment will change depending on what their situation is. And then you want to attach that NEO confirmation, wow, which is different per employee. So that's why there's no link here for that. Next slide, please. Oh, that's it. Any questions? Or anything I didn't bring up that you guys do in your department that you think is important for pre-boarding that helps you and helps a new employee just feel more welcome and comfortable, and that they have what they need to be successful prior to them starting? These are very helpful. Will you be sending out the slides? Yes.
Makitra, I just wanted to mention, because I haven't seen it here, but frequently is questions about earning vacation and sick time and then use of vacation and sick time just after an employee begins. I've literally experienced people that are here for 2 weeks and then, oh, I'm gonna take one of my weeks of vacation off and they haven't earned it yet. So I hadn't seen anything about that.
Yeah, that's actually, I really like that, and Agatha said it to leave information. It is in the job ad information when they apply to CU Careers. So maybe that's something we can take from the resources they give us and apply it to the first day email, or maybe in their onboarding schedule, if departments do that internally, we can go over what the leave policies are or aren't. And then Amy said, we give out a small welcome box with department branded items. Oh, she deleted it. Maybe I wasn't supposed to say that. Avery said, after the first day, we try to make a department announcement and schedule a brief onboarding meeting with the DFA to answer any remaining questions. I love that. Campus tour path and talking points to when we have to show new people around. This would be helpful for those of us who are not familiar with the campus. I agree. I'm not going outside when it's cold, but that's a great idea when the weather permits. And yes, giving a campus tour. I know for HR shared services, prior to being in our hybrid environment, we used to walk our employees to get their badges, and then we would walk them over to the department. It's changed now with the hybrid environment, but I do think that's a great idea. And then Agatha said we meet with every new employee for, I'm assuming, like a divisional orientation, which is also a great idea. And so pre-boarding can be anything. I think some of this is going into onboarding a little bit. Pre-boarding is everything prior to them starting. But these are all good things to incorporate into either or process, because it just makes them feel more welcome. It takes the guesswork out of being a new employee, which is never a fun time. And I think that is it. If anybody has any ideas they want to send me, I can beef up and make that first contact, whatever email more robust, and then I can send it out as a template for departments to start using as they see fit. Awesome. I'm going to turn it over to Deanna.
Thank you, Makidra. Okay, so this next part is we're kind of backing up a little bit and getting we're going to go over some of the same stuff that Makidra covered, but it's kind of from our side, from the HR business partner side, on what we should look for onboarding. And this was actually our very first presentation for Elevate 2 years ago now. So some of this will hopefully look familiar for those of you who have been around for a while, because we just recycled the slides and updated a little bit. So next slide, please. So the new employee orientation. So that process is you have to register the employee, and then HR will give them access to the class in Canvas, and then the employee has they have about 3 hours it takes them to do that class, and then if there's additional training required. So that's that process. Next slide, please. So just some tips for NEO. Make sure that they have an HCM profile and an employee ID before you register for them. And if you can, wait to register for them until they've claimed their account so that they get it to their university email. And then make sure that you're selecting a date for NEO that is on or after the employee's start dates, because they have to be a current employee to be able to complete that. And then if they use an affiliate partner email, like Children's as their primary account, make sure that their university email is forwarded to their primary account. Otherwise, they'll miss the information. Next slide. And then make sure you save the confirmation number in case you need to change it. And CVET does not allow for multiple registrations for the same email address. So if you have a duplicate error, you're going to have to contact the training folks. There are some FAQs that are linked here, and if you have questions, you can contact HR training and they will help you. They're very helpful. Any questions on NEO? Okay, next slide. And then our favorite thing is the I-9. Next slide, please. So employees hopefully are completing section 1 before they start, right? They can't complete that before they actually accept the offer. And then you need to review their documents and fully complete section 2 within 3 business days of their hire. This, with the new administration, is probably going to be coming under more scrutiny. So we need to make very sure that we are doing things the right way. Next slide, please. So to complete an I-9, you would access HireRight or E-Verify. So you log into the portal, you pick business tools, and then you click on I-9/E-Verify. Next slide. And then, so section 1, the employee will fill that out and they'll complete their attestation. Then you will complete section 2. That's when you look at their documents and make sure that they are accurate and you enter that information in. And then section 3 is for re-verifications or rehires. And generally central HR takes care of those. Next slide. Original documentation is needed to confirm their identity and eligibility to work in the United States. There is a list of acceptable documents, and the employee gets to pick which documents they present from those lists. Next slide. And then we run E-Verify on everyone. So once you complete the I-9, then you run them through E-Verify to make sure that they are in fact eligible to work in the United States. Next slide. So then these are just some common errors that central HR sees. So the first one is the big one, not completing the section 2 by the 3rd business day, or duplicate I-9. So those are the 2 biggest ones. So if somebody has left and is coming back, it's a good idea to check with central HR ops team to make sure that they need a new one, because they might just be able to fill out that section 3. And then once you initiate, there's also some errors with initiating E-Verify checks. So it'll automatically go through to E-Verify. So to initiate a new I-9, you need to click on new and then invite employee. And then sometimes the employee doesn't enter an expiration date for their alien authorization. Sometimes international document dates are entered incorrectly. So international passports list their dates differently. And then sometimes the I-9 is not updated when the employee legally changes their name. So if you have somebody who gets married or divorced and changes their name, you should get them in contact with the I-9 folks so that they can get that updated. Next slide, please. Okay, so then first day preparation. So these are some things that we encourage you to think about ahead of time and get ready for the new hire. So their computer, the keys, the badges, and some other stuff. So we're going to go through this real quick. Next slide, please. So the computer workspace and setup. So once you know someone's coming, you probably need to order them a computer, right? So are they a PC or are they a Mac person? Do they need any specifics? Specifications? If they're a biostatistician, they probably need a big fancy computer that somebody who is just working off a laptop does not need. And then what other software do they maybe need to have loaded on there, and then peripherals. So making sure that you order from your department IT or IT shared services ahead of time ensures that the employee can be productive and hit the ground running. So you got to keep in mind like what that lead time is. And then it's a good idea to set up a first day login appointment with your IT folks so that they can get Duo downloaded and make sure that the VPN works and their teams work. And then if they are a provider, they need Epic and Haiku. So it's a good idea to set up a meeting with the new employee with the IT folks. And then it's nice to set up their workspace with like have a little selection of office supplies there, something to write on, something to write with, a little name, maybe a name sign if that's something that you do in your department, and then like a little welcome sign. Like Makidra said, they do some coffee or something for our new hires in HR shared services. So having that ready, or having, a little plant or something, just to welcome them and make them feel like we are glad they're here. So department swag is always a good idea as well. Next slide, please. And then keys. So you order keys through the facility's website. You need the employee ID and their email, and you need the building and the room number to submit those key requests. And that's always a good idea to have those ready ahead of time, and then the employee can come and pick those up on their first day. Next slide, please. And then badging, it's our favorite thing. So CU badging, you got to plan ahead. So employees have to be hired in HCM before you can order a badge. And the feed from HCM to the badging software can take a couple of business days. So the preferred name is now allowed on the badge application. So that's a change from the last time. And then all building and floor and lab access needs to be in the body of the email. And then CC the badge approver so that they can just respond directly to the email. And then it's really important to make an appointment, but not until you get the email from the badging office that it's been processed. And I know sometimes you get over there and they ask you if you have an appointment and there's nobody else in there, but they really like it if you have an appointment. It's really good customer service to take the new hire over to the badging office. Just telling them to go to Building 500 and find their way is not great customer service. So we want to set a good example for people on the first day. So walking them over here is a great idea. And then also if you're there, if there's an issue, you can usually solve it. Because you're usually maybe you're the one that has filled out the badging application. There is a new online system coming soon. We've been saying that for 2 years, so we'll see. Next slide, please. And then UC Health badging, you request those through the portal. You need to know which additional locations are needed. Appointments are generally not needed for them unless you're in June or July when they're onboarding all the learners. When you take the person over there, have their employee ID available in case they're not in their system yet for some reason. And the best practice is to get the CU badge first. Next slide. And then children's badging is complicated. So badge requests for, I'm reading this now, badge requests for faculty with full privileges at Children's are managed through the medical staff office. The badges for university staff, so like research services or non-patient care, those are initiated through the Children's business manager or their designee in the section into which they are being hired. For university employees not associated with a specific PEDS department, they would need to contact their business partner and their respective children's department. And then for non-faculty university employees to retain to get a children's ID badge, they have to go through the non-employee onboarding process at Children's. And this is initiated by managers who have supervisor access in the children's system. So if you have more, for more information, reach out to the university HR business partner that is for your corresponding children's department. That's a lot of words. Next slide, please. And then meet and greet and department orientation. So this is your first best opportunity to have the new hire feel welcome. So introducing them to their supervisor, to their teammates, maybe assigning them a buddy. In previous jobs I've had, we've assigned all new hires to somebody who's been there for at least a couple of years, so that they can help. They have somebody that's not a supervisor that they can ask questions of. Show them their office space, show them the meeting areas, take them on a tour, show them where the bathrooms are. That's like a #1 thing to do. Show people where the bathrooms are. Where the break room is, if there's a supply room, where the printers are, so they can get themselves mapped to those, and then where to put their stuff. And then we like to encourage a day 1 agenda and a week 1 itinerary for them so that they know what to expect. And then a lot of departments have department specific information, like some kind of survival guide that is specific to your department. So if any of you have those things, you can put this in the chat or you can come off mute. What things would you include in your department specific information? Okay, so leave system and leave accrual. Yep, how to report. That's important. Yep, who to call into. That's great. Promotion timeline for faculty. Yes, that's important. An org chart. Yes. Benefits. Great. Yeah, I like to give them a little bit of a a benefits orientation, just because some of it gets a little overwhelming in the NEO, in the benefits orientation. Great. So some other things, like a who's who in your department, any specific policies that you have, information on the portal. I've previously would demonstrate like how to get into the portal, and kind of click around in there to show them, where they're going to look for stuff. Acronyms, if you've got department specific acronyms, that's a good thing. Conference room procedures. So if you've got a conference room that is run, by the department, and you can get those approved pretty regularly, but that's important to have, because especially if they're trying to reserve a bigger conference room, that's a different process. Where to eat, campus tour, maps, and then how to set themselves up in Concur, I think, is a good thing as well, so that if they need to get reimbursed for something, then they're already set up in there. And then general performance expectations, I think, is a good thing to cover. So we also would encourage, if you have department swag, hand that out to them, and then lunch with the team, and then a welcome email to the department. So you've sent them their welcome emails, welcoming them to the department, but it's a nice idea to announce the new hires to your department and give them a little background about that. Next slide, please. And then taking them on a campus tour. The one thing that people really want to know is, where's the closest parking lot to where I work? So having that information available, places to eat, other buildings that they might need to know. So it's always a good idea for people to know what building 500 or Fitzsimmons, and potentially the education buildings or the research buildings if they have to go and then the new building for the conference centers. So, and then picking up their badge. So it's a good idea to go with them to pick up their badge. Next slide. And then here's a sample week 1 itinerary. So maybe they come in and you meet with them, and then they go get their computer, and then they have lunch with the team, and then they have a meeting with their manager, and then you can help them, let them settle in, right? So they've got NEO to do, they've got online trainings to do, and then for through the remainder of the week, they have maybe some meetings, and different staff meetings or different online trainings. I would say that the online trainings always take longer than you think they're going to, so allow specific time built in for that. Next slide, please. And then just to make sure that these things are all completed in the first week, so that they've done their new hire paperwork, right? Their I-9, they've set up their W-4 and their direct deposit and their emergency contact, and then their remote work form. And then parking is important to get set up right away, that they know that they need to go to NEO and the benefits orientation, that they get enrolled in benefits, and then whatever required training else that your department has. And then getting connected. So getting connected to the dean's letter, the CU Anschutz today, and then there's a bunch of mailing lists that you can choose to jump on to get information about what's going on campus. Next slide. Just a note about the remote work form. So they fill that out on the campus or the central HR website, but it's a nice idea to have some templated language for them. So then all they have to do is fill in, their department and their name and that kind of thing. And then they can fill that in easier with the remote work form. Sometimes people get confused on that. Next slide. Parking, so they can set up their parking on the website. There is an EcoPass included if they are doing at least the part-time parking. That's a nice perk for people. And then the reciprocal parking pass is not something that everybody knows about, but you can get a little hang tag and you can park on the Denver campus. There is the Walnut, at 5th and Walnut, there's a parking garage, and then there's another one out down there, which comes in real convenient if you have a concert at the Pepsi Center. Just throwing that out there. Next slide. And then NEO and benefits orientation. So NEO takes about 3 hours. The benefits orientation is about 1.5 hours. There is a guide that is also a great recruitment tool that we would encourage you to use. That's on the employee services website. And you can direct folks there, like even when you're in the offer process, or you can even link to that in the in your job ad. Next slide. So benefits enrollment. So if somebody starts on the 1st of the month, then their benefits begin immediately. If they start after the 1st, then the benefits begin the 1st day of the next month. This is important for people to know ahead of time too, because they might need to buy Cobra, or they might decide to wait and just get our benefits, but it's good for them to know. They have 30 days to enroll, but changes are only allowed during open enrollment or for qualifying life events. And then we do have disability and dental as well. Next slide. And then choosing a PCP. So if you are on one of the CU plans, you do need to have a primary care provider. So there are a couple of resources there. So there's a Find a Doctor website on Anthem, and then CU Medicine has the CU Doctors website. So all of the providers are listed there. There's a list of the family medicine and internal medicine practices that are run through UC Health. And then the medical group that UC Health runs also has another dozen or so freestanding primary care places. And then if they're on Kaiser, they have a Find a Doctor website. Next slide. And then required training. So everybody's required to complete these 5 courses within the first 30 days. So information security and privacy awareness, HIPAA, discrimination, sexual misconduct, fiscal code of ethics, and the ADA. Those are in Precipio. It's a little bit different to find them than they used to be in Skillsoft. So there's some directions there on how to locate those. Next slide. And then additional training for providers. So providers need to attend additional training in order to be activated in Epic. So there's ACE training, and then there's Epic training, and then there might be additional ULearn courses depending on their privileges. So make sure that they get those done pretty quickly so that they can get to seeing patients. Next slide. And then here's some additional training suggestions. So there's a remote worker training through LinkedIn Learning that we would encourage. There's an implicit bias training. And then there's some FERPA and some P cards and some procurement stuff that you can direct folks to. Next slide. And then we do have a bunch of cool stuff for working at the university. So I always like to point this out to folks on their first day, just so that they can kind of take a look and see what else they have coming as a benefit. Next slide. So there's the child care and elder care. So we have care.com on the Anschutz campus. So that's a great benefit for our folks. And then there's other information there on the child care and elder care page. So there's other resources there as well. We are a public service loan forgiveness employer. We have the CU Health Plan. We have the MOVE program. You get paid to exercise. And then our LinkedIn learning classes, those are all free, included with your university employment. Next slide. And then all of the discounts that are available. So CU Advantage there's its own tile on the in the portal, but there's so many different things in there that you can get discounts on. It's kind of overwhelming, actually. But we also get season tickets. Football is hard to come by these days, but you can get season tickets at a discount. There's the University Key programs. You can get discounts for being a CU employee. Those are for a lot of downtown venues. So like the Symphony and some other stuff that are downtown. And then the state of Colorado has the Benefit Hub. Next slide. And then we have a variety of mental health and wellness supports available to us on the campus. So there's the Real Help Hotline. And then there's the Faculty and Staff Mental Health Center. That is actually pretty easy to get into compared to the Depression Center or some of our other outpatient psychiatric providers. So, and that's only for faculty and staff. So that's a good service to be aware of. And then we have the EAP, and then there's the Phoenix Center. Next slide. And then we encourage you to do a new hire follow-up with folks. So 30 days after they start, just kind of check in. How's it going? How's it going with your supervisor? Are you getting enough feedback? Are you getting enough training? You know, kind of how does the job match up with what you expected? Any surprises that we should have told you about? And then you can ask if there's any frustrations and see if there's anything that you can help ease into that. And then it's a good thing to check in again after 60 or 90 days, just to make sure that things are still going well and that they are feeling like they are connected to the organization. Next slide. So, and then just some tips for supervisors. So it's really important to have a first day meeting with your new hires. Setting up regular one-on-ones is important. Talking about your communication preferences, theirs and yours. Make sure you're forwarding meeting invites to things, and then asking them about their recognition preferences. I should have added in here that we should be talking about See You Celebrates. I cannot believe that just now occurred to me. So yeah, See You Celebrates is probably another thing to talk about. And then clarify expectations. So make sure that they understand their work hours and their schedule and whether they're supposed to be in person or hybrid. How to make time off requests. So some supervisors just want you to put it on their calendar. Other ones use MyLeave as an actual approving tool. So make sure you explain that to folks, and then kind of talk about the culture a little bit. And then performance management. It's a good idea for supervisors in that first month to make sure that the employee understands the job description and the responsibilities and how their work fits into the bigger picture of the university. And then kind of what are the 30, 60, 90-day expectations. And then I think it's a good idea to talk about feedback as well, how somebody would prefer to have feedback and how you are generally giving feedback, so that there's not a miscommunication early on. Next slide. I think that's it. All right. Questions? Anything else that you guys do that we have not covered here that would be cool for other people to know about? Going once, going twice. All right, well, thanks everyone for joining us. We will see you again next month. And I don't have the schedule in front of me, so I don't know what the topic is, but we will get that out with the beginning of the month email. Thanks for coming, everyone. Oh, if you could fill out the evaluation before you leave, that'd be great too.
That was the last one.
Okay. All right, any last minute questions? All right.